Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I know it's an early Saturday morning for you on the West Coast and a Saturday evening in Asia. And I know this is a global audience. People have joined us from around the world. Um, on behalf of Readers Without Borders and our co-hosts and partners, SAPAN, uh, South Asia Peace Action Network, thank you for joining us. And we are very delighted and honored to host Dr. Azra Raza, who is a activist, a scholar, a poet, and we're going to be discussing her book, The First Cell. For those of you who don't know about Readers Without Borders, we are a book club. We meet one Saturday a month, volunteer run. And if you're not already a member, just send me a direct message and we're happy to add you to our mailing list. And for those of you who don't know about Sapan, Bina, do you want to just say a word about Sapan, South Asia Peace Action Network?
Sure. Thank you, Amreen, and thank you, Azrapa. Lovely to see you, looking wonderful as always. And hello, Haris, and hello, Amreen again. And hello, everyone who's joined. I'm Bina Sarwar. I'm a journalist and a peace activist from Karachi and Lahore, I would say, and South Asia in general. And I'm based in Boston. Sapan, that Amreen mentioned, that is co-hosting this thing, which Haris has very competently put together, I would say, is, I think, very relevant to Dr. Azra's work because it's about connecting people across borders, dialogue, compassion, empathy. And the founding charter is at southasiapeace.com, and I'll put it in the chat. And I won't go on much more about that, and I'll hand it back to you. Thank you.
Thanks so much. And let me just quickly introduce Haris. Haris is a Chicago-based business and community leader dedicated to advancing entrepreneurship, leadership development, civic engagement, and humanitarian causes. And he's a founder and CEO of Pragmatium Consulting Group, where he advises founders, CEOs, and boards of organizations, ranging from startups to Fortune 500 companies. He's also an angel investor in early stage startups, stage ventures. And beyond his professional work, he's also been the chairman of Open Chicago, and he's also a philanthropist in his own right. So, with that, let me give this to Haris. So, Haris, on to you. I
Thank,
will let you introduce Dr. Raza
thank you,
and
Umbreen.
the book.
Umbreen, I want to recognize Umbreen for her dedication and leadership in establishing this space in the crazy world that we live in to create I will call it a global space for people who are interested in reading and debating and understanding the world. She's done a tremendous job in doing so and continues to grow this space for the diaspora community and beyond. Um, Adab and good morning to everybody, and good evening to people who are joining in Asia. We are close to almost 35 people here, and we expect others to sort of stream in. We have a very special session here today. Those who are familiar with this platform, I know this link went beyond to others outside of the host and the co-host groups. So we typically go through books, and when we are fortunate to have today an author who is going to um, challenge your thinking, let's say, at the very least. I mean, most of you know Azra Appa. We call her that affectionately. Dr. Azra Raza formerly is the Chan Soon-Shiong Professor of Medicine and Director at the MDS Center at Columbia. She's devoted her life to research on MDS and leukemia. She has built, my understanding, the largest tissue repository in the world, where she hopes that that will contain the secrets for unlocking this terrible disease that afflicts so many human beings. But beyond our scientific endeavors, she is I would call her a student and an interpreter of literature, particularly poetry of Ghalib. We are later going to post this link. She has co-authored, for those of you who are aficionados of Urdu poetry, Ghalib Epistemologies of Elegance is a lovely book that you should add, if you haven't read, to your list, in addition to this book that we'll be discussing here today, The First Cell. So this conversation, when we started to talk to Azra Appa a few weeks ago, and I started to start to kind of get into the book, and she applauded me that she said it's a difficult book. And indeed, it was a difficult book to read. And I think intentionally, you wanted it to be a difficult book because it is challenging assumptions. While I didn't quite fully grasp all the scientific aspects of this, because I'm not a man of science, although I'm born to two physicians, and we are fortunate. I should take a point of privilege. My mother, Dr. Rashida Ahmed, is joining from Karachi today, a fellow Dawite Azra graduate of 1960s class. Um, today the conversation will go between science, evidence, emotions. The book was as much about human suffering and a very personal look at that as she presented. And given who we have today as the author, we will also pepper the conversation with some Urdu poetry. So with that, I formally welcome Azra Adab to you, and thank you for joining us this early from California.
Adab to you, Haris, to your team, to everybody who has joined. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So shuru kare. Let's do that. I think most people are bilingual. We'll do it in English, but we will take some liberties with Urdu too. So to start with, as I understood this, the central premise of the book is that the establishment, I would call it the medical establishment, the cancer establishment in this nation and worldwide, has been focused on treatment of the disease, and you have been one of the lone voices who've been saying we've got to get to before it happens. So my question to you is, what would it take to scientifically, financially, and culturally to sort of turn it on its head, this war on cancer, and we go towards more of a preventative mode that you've been arguing?
Thank you, Haris. I'd like to say one thing before I start, which is that I'm not only grateful to all of you, but I'm particularly honored that number one, your mother has joined from Karachi. I'm really thrilled about that. And two, my older sister, Dr. Atkia Khan, has joined from Maryland because I owe my entire career, and I would say anything I have become, basically to her mentorship and to Atkia's guidance. Because when I arrived as a 24-year-old in the US and landed in her home and stayed with her for years afterwards, she knew of my obsession with cancer research and went to her boss at the Cancer Center in Buffalo, saying that my sister wants to work. And his response was, if she's half as good as you, Atia, we will take her. That's how my career began. So thank you so much to my sister.
Welcome to Dr. Atia to the session.
Of course, a lot of you know her in her other role, which is
Absolutely.
a true humanitarian and a wonderful physician and pediatric oncologist associated with Georgetown and Hopkins, some of the best institutions in the country. So coming now to the book and the reason why we are all here today, I think you asked a very good question to begin with. How can we do better? How can we shift from the last cell to the first cell? And basically, my answer is that let me actually just show it to you. I do believe that what I'm holding in my hand is the answer, is the cure for cancer and all chronic diseases. So what is in this I'm holding? There is a syringe and a needle. The answer is not in the syringe, but it is in the needle. And what is in the needle is the future of biotechnology and healthcare. Because we are at a moment in history now where miniaturized automated devices that can be placed either inside the body or outside can continuously monitor for the appearance of the first abnormalities that are harbingers of disease. Now, think about it this way. We want to detect cancer early. We want to screen healthy people for the earliest stage 1 cancer. The only tests available are episodic, periodic. You can get a mammogram only once a year. You can get a colonoscopy once every 2 years. Well, how many cancers are we going to miss in between? What we need, as you asked, what will it take? What does it need? What do we have to do? Well, I am saying that the cure for cancer is in front of us. It is not in treatment. We need to move the entire ecosystem of healthcare away from treating illness to maintaining wellness. And how do you maintain wellness? Find the earliest markers of disease and remove or neutralize them. At that stage, simple measures like lifestyle changes could work. So, what I'm holding in my hand is there is a coronary stent, which is millions of people are walking around with coronary stents today. Well, 11 years ago, I started working at Columbia University with biomedical bioelectronic engineers, asking them to help me develop something which could monitor for the appearance of the first cancer cell. These brilliant guys, Ken Shepard and Professor Sam Sia, they have taken a coronary stent and fabricated electronics on it in such a way that the stent can now be placed in the arm vein, and it sits there and it can identify cells by size. So let's say the largest blood cell is 15 microns. A cancer cell is 200 microns, much larger. Mm-hmm. So as the first cell appears, it can not only detect, it can zap the cell and eliminate it. And this is where I think the future of healthcare is all in automated electronics, biotechnology, and the petabytes of data that will be generated from monitoring every second of what's going on. We need AI, machine learning platforms, without which we can't do anything now. So important to do it. And I'm calling it the era of not artificial intelligence, Haris, but implantable intelligence. In fact, I've trademarked that term because I came up with it. The era of implantable intelligence. We are implanting intelligence in the body to continuously. And this thing I'm showing you, the engineers have worked on it in such a way that the entire body's 5 liters of blood go through this tiny stent every 2 weeks. This is where the cure will be, in early detection and prevention.
Excellent. That's very exciting, hopeful. How soon, I know as they say, the future is here, but it's here unevenly. How commercially available is this to patients?
Well, listen, you are the president of Open in Chicago, or where I'm. So in Dallas, Express. When in Dallas, I presented to Open.
Yes.
Just a couple of months ago, and I presented this whole idea and the company that I've built around it. And as I came off the stage, guys, this young Pakistani reporter with a cameraman with him accosted me and said, "Listen, I have to post a 1-minute interview on Instagram.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you 3 questions that you have to answer in 1 minute."
Right.
I said, "Okay, shoot." So his first question was, "What are you here pitching to Open?" And I said, "Well, we have developed a stent that can detect the first cancer cell and eliminate it. Mm-hmm. Compare it to a Pakistani dessert, what would it be?" I said, "Shahi tukre." He said, "Why?" I said, "Because, listen, I'm at the tail end of my career and I'm ready for dessert now.
Right.
And this is my dessert. And why Shahi Tukre? That's the royal dish. My father was from Lucknow, mother from Aligarh. For them, Shahi Tukre was the ultimate dessert." Third question he asked. He said, "Tell me one thing one piece of advice that you were given as a young person, which you dismissed at the time, but now have come to understand it is very important?
Mhm.
My answer was simple, Haris. And this is my answer to your question also. Money matters.
Mhm.
When I was young, I was always on this high horse of morality. I don't care about money. That is too lowbrow for me to think about. I'm going to do blah, blah, these intellectual things. But then as I entered practical science, it's very clear you can't move a step without having vast resources,
Mhm.
because science is a very expensive enterprise. And when you ask me when can I get my stentinel, by the way, we call it the stentinel,
Love it.
stent and sentinel combined. When am I going to get my stentinel? Everything depends on resources. But the way I'm going right now, if I can continue this journey, and this is why I'm here in Los Angeles right now and
Mhm.
not back home in New York, is working for just this. I had said that the earliest we can give the Sentinel, the first 50 people will be walking around with it in 2029.
Mhm.
But recently, my Professor Ken Shepard told us that the results that they're conducting in vitro just with different size beads that they're passing through the stent right now are so good that he's moving it back to 2028.
Oh, wow.
And Haris, that is around the corner.
That is essentially that's here. And given what you have laid out very well in the book, that many approaches to cancer have been the same for decades. I mean, this is seismic. This is life-changing in terms of what it can provide to people.
Well, that is the point of writing the book, The First Cell. One of the most important points was that, look, we have forgotten about the patient who is the center.
Hmm.
And yet, somehow, we are using animal models, we are using all kinds of artificial things in such a way that for the last 50 years, 95% of the drugs we bring through those experiments to the bedside, 95% fail today.
Right.
And what is the cost of that failure? $60 billion in just phase one trials alone for cancer alone. $60 billion. The entire budget of Pakistan is 34 billion.
True.
Think of the waste in this. And so that is just the financial toxicity. What about the intellectual waste? Look at
Right.
all the young minds being wasted on this. But it's why have we been doing all this? So the whole point of my book is that basically two things. One, that I have looked at everything to do with cancer through the prism of human anguish.
Hmm.
So each chapter is about a patient and what happened to them
Hmm.
and why it happened and why did we do all those slash, poison, burn things to these people when we knew that it's not going to help them at all. And the second point of the book is exactly moving away from the cost of chasing the last cell to turning 180 degrees around to the finding and eliminating the first cell. And what will do it is a financial incentive. If all the grants and all the money is being offered in the last cell strategies, then why would any young person take the risk of going to the first cell? They'll go where the money trail is. So I'm saying that we need to financially incentivize the first cell just as much as we need to pay attention to treatment options, because we have cancer patients now. So I'm not saying we drop that. And there have been tremendous advances and progress in treatment of cancer, but they're incremental, they're not curative, they're palliative, and they come at a horrible cost, both financially and physically, to the patient. Those are the things I'm reacting against in the book.
And you painted a very personal picture in the vignettes about individuals. I mean, obviously, the one about your late husband, Harvey. It was very hard to read many of those segments. And Omar and Andrew and I forget some of the other names who were protected their anonymity. The human suffering which you've captured, and you speak very openly about this hope and illusion that physicians in the current cancer treatment environment give to patients. So how should physicians balance this? We are hopeful about this Stentanil that will become available, inshallah, soon. But in the meantime, talk about this balance between hope and the suffering element, and perhaps there's some, they intend it well, but it just comes at a tremendous cost to patients. What is the balance? There are a number of physicians on this call too, who I'm sure struggle with the same dilemma. What would you offer there?
Well, first of all, even at this age, after decades of seeing cancer patients, I find it, I must say, very hard to give bad news to patients.
Yeah.
And in this, poetry comes to help me. Emily Dickinson, I'd like to quote here.
Please.
Such a beautiful piece of advice she gave, because when I was young, it was particularly hard for me. Now it's easy, it's slightly better because I have more acceptance rather than rebellion in my mind. Tell all the truth. So her admonition in the first line is, you cannot lie to the patient. You cannot give them false hope. You have to tell all the truth. Tell all the truth, but tell it slant. Success in circuit lies. Too bright for our infirm delight, the truth's superb surprise. Like lightning to the children, eased with explanations kind, the truth must dazzle gradually, or every man be blind. That is the fine line that we need between hope and reality. The fact is that when you have someone who knows that they don't have too much time left to look years ahead of them, then you know what happens, Harris, is that suddenly now becomes more important. Now becomes the engine of hope. And suddenly every moment becomes precious to you because you don't have that much time left. And most patients, because I'm forever dealing with terminally ill patients who are dying in my arms, the thing is that even they don't realize it consciously, but suddenly they want to see old family albums. They want to meet all their friends. They want to make the most of this time. And we need to be there with them through these last tail end of the journey, just as much as we had been with them while we were fighting their disease or trying to cure them. And I think the fine line, that is the fine line, where cure and healing become different. Where a physician may not be able to cure, but they can heal. And I'll end this by just giving you one example. After my husband died, my daughter was 8 years old. So a few weeks later, she got very sick with some kind of upper respiratory infection. And she was sick for a week. And a week later, early morning, I was sitting in the family room, and she came out of her room in the morning, this 8-year-old crying hysterically. So I got so scared as a mother. Immediately, I thought she's much worse. I said, Shehrzad, what's wrong? Are you sick? And she couldn't even answer. She was inconsolable. When she controlled herself, she said, no, I'm not sick, mommy. In fact, I'm feeling much better. But now I know how horrible it is to feel sick and how good it is to get better. And my dad never got better. There's the sensitivity of an 8-year-old who understood at the fundamental level what it means. And this is, to me, this is what we have forgotten. We have forgotten to place the patient at the center of the story. And why I keep saying that is because the majority of cancer researchers are not even MDs. They don't see patients. So here are researchers who are trying to cure a disease they never see in animals who don't get it.
It makes no sense. And I think that's why you keep a grueling schedule. You've kept the patient access and contact while doing your research, and you'll never give that up for that reason. And it comes through. I know you're an empath, and that empathy comes through as you were telling these deeply human stories, which were gut-wrenching. But it's the human toll that is not told. The other aspect that you laid on was this what we call in Urdu shifa, right? The difference between cure and healing, and um, that is somehow missed by people, and it's so profound. There are so many luminaries, I would say, on this phone call as I've been seeing the names come through, and for fear of missing people, I won't name them, but we've got the cream of the crop from the diaspora and beyond here, who's joining us here this morning on Saturday, and I deeply appreciate you all for joining. But I will take a point of privilege and recognize my father-in-law, Dr. Azra, who has also joined us, and he hails from Lucknow. Lovely. Okay.
Well, I want to read a share for him then.
Go for it. Yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Akhilur Rahman, for joining. My father was from Lucknow, and they never go, he and his brother, Sayyid Hassan Raza, they never got over the trauma of that exile from Lucknow. And my uncle, Sayyid Hassan Raza, summarized this trauma in one sher.
Irshad.
Chaman chhuta to chhuta tha, mazaq-e rang-o boo chhuta. There's a whole genre of Urdu poetry called Shehr-Ashob, which is about the destruction and the calamity that befalls a city. But it's not just about the loss of a city, it's about a loss of a way of being. The customs, the courtesies, everything that went with the city. So the chaman here is, of course, for them Lucknow. Chaman chhuta to chhuta tha, mazaq-e rang-o boo chhuta. छुटी आदम से जन्नत और हमसे लखनऊ छूटा.
Kya baat, mashallah, very nice. Lovely. Listen, with that, why don't we give an opportunity? People have been sending comments and emoticons on this stuff, but we have been very rude in muting people, and we did that just so we can have this first segment without interruption as people were filtering in. But at this point, I'd like to open this up for any questions that you may have. And my request is, if you raise your hand using the tools that are available to you on this Zoom, we'll recognize you in the order that you've raised your hand and asked the question. The only thing I would ask of you to maximize the interaction, limit your comments to 30 seconds if possible. End with a question. It's okay for you to have a comment because this is deeply personal. I'm seeing a lot of people adding things, Azrapa, you're not seeing in the chat. Obviously this touches people and it's bringing back memories of their own losses in their lives. And we appreciate you sharing that with us here in this community. So I'll ask my volunteer team here, the admins, to keep me honest on this stuff. We'll open this up for the interaction component. So raise your hand and we'll go down the order. And in the meantime, if anyone, Amreen or Bina, others have anything to add, you can certainly do so.
Well, I'd like to thank Azrapa for Azrapa for your wonderful for sharing your wonderful thoughts as you always do. So wonderful to see you, and every time I hear you, I'm struck by, I think this was a new word for me, Haris, that empath, somebody who
Yes,
has empathy.
she is
um,
excellent.
and I think that is so precious today in today's world where um, going into medicine has become a money making thing for so many people. People go into medicine to make money. And that relates to Rapa, what you said, that you need money to, go forward. So how to find that balance is so hard.
True, very true. Okay, do we have people who are interested in asking the question, Ambreen? As
I
pick
think
Mohammed Siddiqui. Oh,
oh,
I see him. But go ahead, Ambreen. You decide the order in which you want to ask the questions.
sure. I think it would be great to have Muhammad Siddiqui talk. I also want to actually add, I did appreciate the poem that you read from Emily Dickinson because it is, having lost my own father to cancer as a college student, it's really difficult to tell the truth slant. I mean, I don't know, I don't recall it being told slant. It was very painful hearing about my father was diagnosed stage 4 lung cancer, small cell lung cancer, and we lost him to it. And there really is no easy way along the way to receive that news. And so I appreciate, as Bina said, the empathy that you have, and every time you experienced telling cancer patients, I really appreciate your humanity to that, and how you've managed to hold on to your humanity. It's really remarkable. But with that, I'll leave it to um, Muhammad Siddiqui because I know he has a profound comment or question.
First of all, I want to acknowledge what Harris laid out in the beginning, which is 30 seconds, and that's all I'll need, only because I ardently follow the old adage of be seen, be heard, and be seated. Dr. Raza, it was incredible. I have not read your book, but I will make it a point. I was taking notes when you were talking. I will read it. I lost my wife 2 days from now. It'll be 9 months exactly to pancreatic cancer, which is probably one of the worst cancers. So I will read your book. I think I've heard your name once before because my sister is very fond of Sher Shairi. And I'm pretty proficient in Urdu myself. I've heard your name, but I did not know that you were also a medical doctor. So I really appreciate what you said. Recently read Brian Johnson's Code 7, found it fascinating. He thinks people will live forever. I don't want to live forever, but I will make a point of reading your book, if only to give myself more consolation. Thank you, Harris. I'll turn it back to Ambereen.
Thank you, Mohammed Siddiqui, who, by the way, is a serial author, a deep thinker, and a wonderful human being. So delighted to have him here. Others may raise your hands. There's a question that came in actually from my father-in-law. He may have joined a few minutes after we started. Dr. Aqil Attar, he says, are the hurdles in the cure? The question he asks is, are the hurdles in the cure of cancer due to the fact that cancer is not one disease?
This is a very deep and a profound question, actually, because I've always said that when we are trying to develop treatment for cancer, what we are really doing is trying to outmaneuver something that started a long time before and has had an infinite chance of evolving based on this environment that it is present in. So, for example, the same cancer that starts in me as a pancreatic cancer is going to now have to deal with my immune system, the number of infections I have been exposed to, the diet I have, the lifestyle I've maintained, all these other things. And the same cancer in Haris would depend on his immune system. So trying to now give the same treatment to both of us would mean that I may have a 40% chance of responding to the drug, but Haris may have an 80% chance. So we are now applying population statistics to individuals. The second thing that Dr. Aqilur Rahman said, I think, is very important, that basically the same cancer in me, when it metastasizes and goes from pancreas to the lungs or to the liver, is now not the same cancer even within me. So this is the issue, that the complexity of dealing with established cancer, with a visible cancer, even at stage 1, is so deep that all we can do is try slash, poison, and burn, because we don't know how to deal with it otherwise. And even stage 1 cancers are not early enough. I mean, think about it. From 1980s, when I really seriously began to study cancer, it occurred to me that the only good news we can give to a patient to whom we are giving a diagnosis of cancer is that, hey, we found it early, so we can help. Well, then how early is early? Why is stage 1 early? Because stage 1 is visible cancer. It has declared itself. I feel that we should be the last generation that is dealing with visible disease. The coming generations will be dealing with invisible disease before anything becomes obvious. And the only way to do it is through continuous monitoring of each individual. That is called precision oncology. We need to move from population oncology to precision oncology. And the stent that I am showing you guys can also detect biomarkers such as pieces of protein, pieces of DNA, RNA. In other words, this stent in the future can also detect Alzheimer's disease, neurodegenerative disorders, chronic diseases associated with aging, which are throwing these. So I think what Dr. Siddiqui said is that he doesn't want to live forever, but we all agree with him. But what he didn't say, but he meant, is that whatever time we have, we want to have a healthy lifespan.
Right.
Not necessarily an endless lifespan, but whatever it is, we should be able to move ourselves and not become dependent on others. This is the wish of everyone, I'm sure, on this call. And that's what I am trying to introduce, that it is doable. We just need resources for it. I'm in California. You know why? Because my childhood hero of a program that we used to watch on TV in Karachi, Star Trek, the hero of that is Captain Kirk, played by William Shatner.
Yes.
Remember Mr. Spock and Captain Kirk? Well, William Shatner unfortunately got stage 4 cancer. I'm able to talk about it because he has. So he read my book, guys. And his daughter also got stage 4 cancer of a different kind. So both of them read my book, The First Cell, and loved it. And Bill Shatner then interviewed me for his podcast. And when I showed him this device and, we went over, he was so moved that he said, Azra, you shouldn't be hiding this at Columbia University. We need to show this and get you to California I want to introduce you to some of my friends. So I said, well, what friends do you have in mind? And he goes, well, Elon. I said, no, thank you. Not necessarily that one, but I would love to come and see you. So this is why I'm here, meeting with Bill Shatner. And
Fantastic.
the other friend and benefactor of mine that I'm here to see also is Patrick Soon-Shiong. Those of you from California know he owns the LA Times, he owns the LA Lakers, and Patrick Soon-Shiong happens to be my benefactor and friend in that he loves my work. He endowed a professorship to Columbia University, which only I can occupy as long as I'm alive. And what that's done is that it has protected my time to do research, because now part of my salary is covered by that. I don't have to work for that salary. So I'm in California trying to raise resources because I want to combine building a biotechnology global healthcare system, which actually affects all over the world. It shouldn't be confined to the US. I come from Pakistan. I want to do things for Pakistan also. I don't want to develop treatments that will remain in ivory towers here and so expensive, like CAR T therapy, that benefits very few and is just out of reach for most people. We need to make something like this cell phone became. Every beggar in Karachi has a cell
Mhm.
phone.
Mhm.
Everyone can afford to have this stent, which costs $80. Stent literally costs $80. And why shouldn't we make this available to the whole world? So I think the point I'm making here, I think I've said too many things in response to you, but I find it's extremely important to recognize that we need resources
Absolutely.
to
And
do
as you
this.
said, and especially if you're going up against an establishment that is entrenched and perhaps fighting, a view that hurts their interests, for that you need money. And actually, I'm looking at the names. There are many who have joined here are early investors in some of your ventures who are trying to sort of bring it from the concept to commercialization. And I think the conversations that you're having with some of the individuals in California, may those result in more action. I want
And
to
I'm
go.
not
Yeah,
asking for donation. I'm
go on.
not asking for philanthropy. This is investment
It is. It is.
in a company, in the whole biotechnology ecosystem of healthcare
It's an
that
investment in mankind.
bring it
Yes.
together. Sorry.
It's an investment in mankind. That's what this
Yeah,
represents.
investment in humanity, in mankind, in biotechnology, which is science is the only way we are going to resolve this issue, guys. I've spent my whole life doing this.
Right.
And so I don't know why people are not throwing money at me all the time. They should be, because I don't need to continuously establish my credibility in the area. I mean, I still see 30 to 40 cancer patients a week, despite having a big cancer research lab at Columbia, multiple companies I established, I'm directing. So my credibility shouldn't be on the line. But
No.
people need to step up and help.
Azrapa, somebody in the chat is asking if your firm is open to investment.
Absolutely open to investment. Yes. And it's going so fast. If you are a good businessman, you should be able to see the vision is here. And my backing is here from influential people. Patrick Soon-Shiong has just signed a memo of understanding with MBS, Mohammed bin Salman of Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And that memo of understanding is that the two together are going to share technology and share this. But do you know, Haris, that there is no mention of early detection?
Mm. They're still
This is
stuck
why
in
I'm
the old.
here to really tell Patrick that he's somebody I deeply admire, deeply respect. He's a doctor himself, he's a surgeon, he's an incredible, exquisitely sensitive physician, human being. Why is he only going after the last cell? They need, and all of you, it doesn't take a genius to know the earlier you find something, prevention is better than cure, but nobody wants to do it.
Absolutely. And I think you've been saying this for decades now. And I think the work that you're doing, and now hopefully we get another 45 evangelists here who continue to sort of push in the various forums that it needs to get to this. That's the only solution through. I see a question, Azrapa, in I'll just paraphrase this. There was no name attached to that. And it says that it's not a scientific person, but they're asking the question that is there a risk with this preventive technology that it would result in over medicating or leading people to get constantly obsessed with monitoring and treating things that the body may itself naturally overcome?
I mean, the fact that we are destroying abnormal cells detected in the blood is not going to be any threat to anybody. No. That is the beauty of doing early things. Because think of the damage you do with chemotherapy, radiation therapy right now. Nobody wants to question that.
Right.
But they want to question overdiagnosis, overtreatment. Well, it's up to us scientists and physicians to make sure that we are really taking care of those. We are aware of all those risks, and those risks have to be mitigated with the technology that we are developing. So I'm fully confident that that is not going to be the case. No.
Good. I think there were some people who joined a little bit later, so maybe you can just summarize the question that Rabia Sayed is asking. Is the biggest obstacle in terms of shifting the focus of cancer treatment towards prevention? What do you suppose other physicians' administration or the central dogma of cancer treatment that people are reluctant to challenge?
I mean, that's why my whole book is devoted to just examining these issues. Because the reason is, one of my friends was this Nobel laureate, Danny Kahneman, who wrote the book Thinking Fast and Slow.
Mhm.
Many of you who are in business might have read it. Danny was one of my best friends in New York until he died. And one of the things he and I talked about a lot is that we suffer from cognitive biases of all kinds as human beings. And one of the cognitive bias we suffer from is called the sunken cost effect bias, which
Mm.
is that if you put too much into one thing, you are loath to let it go because now you put in too much money. If you are fighting a war and you put in hundreds of billions of dollars in fighting the war, you don't want to just withdraw. You want to have some, you keep putting more and more money to get something out of it. This is the sunken cost effect of war on cancer, where the problem has been that we began with a good hypothesis that we should be able to find the genetic basis of cancer. And we propose that one gene can cause one abnormality and make one cell to become abnormal, and then it multiplies and becomes cancer. And the worst thing that happened to the field is that the first few years produced a tremendous success in curing chronic myeloid leukemia. With Gleevec, it was one drug, they built one magic bullet, and it cured the disease. So now everyone in the field became convinced that, hey, they did it for chronic myeloid leukemia. We just have to find that one gene in pancreatic cancer, that one gene in breast cancer. Well, the rest of the cancers are far too complicated. It didn't happen for the rest.
Mhm.
But the field got sidetracked, and now the human genome was decoded. So then we kept waiting that once we have the genetic information of the whole genome, we'll be able to cure every disease. Well, nothing has happened since 25 years since that was done. Why? Because it's way beyond this reductionist approach of genomics, transcriptomics, metabolomics, not going to work. It's far too complicated a disease. It's more naughty than the London Underground system. You can't simply find it easily. So, given all those things, the only way is keep detecting the first signs and keep removing them. That's the simplest answer. Before these things have a chance of becoming so profoundly complicated and such end stage monstrosities that we are
Mhm.
powerless in front of them.
Let's do a palate cleanser. My brother Rafi is asking, you spoke movingly about human anguish. Wanted to ask you, how do you use Ghalib's poetry to address this human aspect without belittling their aziyat? And he's saying that he's specifically thinking about ye kahlish kahan se hoti jo jigar ke par hota.
Well, I'd love for you to say a few words about why you use this share.
Yeah, this is from my brother, not my share. He's more inclined towards that. He suggested that.
So I want him to
Why you can come off mute and he can share why he chose that share. Rafi, if
Ghalib
you're
share.
there.
कोई मेरे दिल से पूछे तेरे
Let's unmute
तीर में
him.
कस कर.
Can one of the volunteers unmute Rafi? I can't find him.
Kahiye up in the meantime, Azra.
No, I was just completing the शेर.
हाँ,
कोई मेरे
I
दिल
don't
से
see Rafi. Do you see Rafi? Where is he?
so he may have dropped off. That's fine.
Okay.
पूरा
I'm doing it.
I
पूरा
don't
शेयर
see.
बताइए Azra Raza, while we're waiting. Yeah, what's the
Hello.
total
Hi.
totality? Go ahead, Rafi.
Uh, uh, hi. I'm so sorry. I just having a little issue unmuting myself. Well, I know it just I was am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, because I was thinking when I read many years ago Sara Soleri's book, first book, Meatless Days. And I remember, and I know you've written a book with her, Epistemologies of Elegance, and I know you're like very aligned with the kinds of work she was doing, both in English and also, when she was, when you wrote that book with her. But I remember this one episode where she was talking specifically about aziyat, in a sort of like in a very different context. But I mean, the word aziyat has a lot of, I mean, yes, there is a lot of pain in it, but there's also a sort of like a pleasure in that pain. So I mean, this share came to my mind. कोई मेरे दिल से पूछे तेरे तीर नीम कश को ये खलिश कहाँ से होती जो जिगर के पार होता. So, and again, I'm not trying to belittle the extremity of the pain that the people who are suffering from cancer are going through. But I mean, as a healer and as a doctor, I mean, I know you've spoken earlier about how poetry has helped you address it, for yourself and also for the patient. So I thought maybe you could expound a little bit about this mix of pleasure and pain, that poetry gives us access to.
What a beautiful, profound, and deep question. And thank you for mentioning my co-author, my mentor, my best friend, Sarah Suleri Goodyear. She and I spent literally so much time together that we were joined by the hip, just going over Ghalib. And once we would finish like doing one sher or one ghazal, then Sarah would expansively hold forth about Othello or about Wordsworth or about the most amazing topics that only she could talk about. But coming back to your question, I find it very moving. And in response to it, I will read one Ghalib sher, which will answer your
Wonderful.
question.
Please.
इशरते कतरा है दरिया में फना हो जाना. The ultimate ecstasy, the joy, the happiness for a drop is to become part of the ocean. Fana is completely lost. Lose your own identity in that process. इशरते कतरा है दरिया में फना हो जाना और दर्द का हद से गुजरना है दवा हो जाना. So you need to think about now the second line. How does it connect to the first line? Second line is saying exactly what you're pointing out, that a point comes where pain itself becomes the remedy. How is that possible? Well, number one is that many of us women who have born children, we know that labor pain can be so intense that we pass out from it. So literally khudi dawa ho jati hai. You don't need an epidural or anesthesia anymore. But what Ghalib is really saying is that in that process, you become so much a part of the pain itself that the pain doesn't feel the pain. It becomes the engine of your movement through life. It becomes the vital force that is now going to guide you. For me, the pain of seeing the patients constantly and losing them is what has become the engine for driving me to do better. Dard ka had se guzarna hai dawa ho jana. I hope that answers you.
Well, thank you for this. Lots of questions have come in. We'll just take them in order. Question from Regina. How is AI changing oncology? is there any hesitation to using it within the profession?
Not at all. I think medicine is one place where there's no question that AI is the most useful thing. I mean, from the fact that you can now be in a patient room with a new patient, you ask them certain questions, they answer you, you say, okay, based on this, I'm going to order these tests for you. And when they come back, we will examine the results and have our next meeting. By the time you come out, AI has been listening to you and written your whole note for you and ordered all the tests you said you were going to do. And you just have to sign it and go. Think of how much time we have saved already. So, just from that point on, all the way to what I'm talking about with this, where petabytes of data are being examined. And right now in my lab, for example, we are passing gazillions of normal cells and gazillions of cancer cells through these flow systems where the machine learning is going on continuously to try and distinguish between normal and cancer based on cell density, nuclear cytoplasmic ratio, on what are the surface characteristics of a normal blood cell versus a leukemic blood cell. And we don't even know how these platforms are training themselves. But very soon, the platform itself, I just have to pass a cell which can be the same exact size as a normal cell, but this is a cancer cell, this is a normal cell, and the AI will tell me immediately this is a cancer, this is normal. I don't know on what basis. It's through that machine learning of billions and trillions of cells it underwent. It can recognize all these things put together and tell you. So, can you imagine any use better for AI than improving human condition in medicine? No.
Wonderful. We'll go to Dr. Chaudhary, if someone can unmute him. Is that Dr. Mubashir Chaudhary in Maryland? It's a common name. I think that's him. If someone can unmute him, we'll go and from him we'll go to Hamda Merchant
Okay,
next.
so
Go ahead, Dr. Chaudhary. Heard him for a second.
Yeah, I'm trying to
tried to
unmute.
unmute. Me too. I think it's not working.
All right, we'll come back to him.
Oh no, he's unmuted. He's unmuted.
Go
okay.
ahead.
So I have the pleasure of meeting Dr. Azra at the U.S. Consulate in New York, and it won't take too much of time. My question is that before the Shahri Shub happens, the lot of longevity, information is thrown on us, right? Okay, longevity this, longevity that clinic, and what do you think of them? And I might have missed the beginning part of it. What is just in a couple of sentences which you are suggesting to us we should do?
Sorry, repeat your second question.
So, what is this stent which you have? Just a little bit, a few sentences about it. I might have missed the original presentation of it. The device, is it a device which you
I
are
think he's
mentioning?
referring to the Stentanel.
Stentanel, I'm sorry. I'm a stent guy, so I just stayed at the stent, not the Stentanel. So I'm sorry.
And for those who do not know, Dr. Chaudhary is a renowned cardiologist in the DMV area.
Thank you, Dr. Chaudhary. Haris, can I show a quick video, which is 30 seconds? Can I share my screen, in other words, or no?
Does she have that option, admin folks? Can you guys respond?
No, I guess
I don't
it's
think we
okay.
have that
Then
ability.
let
Well,
me
we can send it to them afterwards.
Yeah, maybe if you share it with us later, we can.
Okay. So to answer your question, Dr. Chaudhary, first of all, the longevity issue. By the way, I have become the darling of the wellness industry. I'll tell you why. Because there are all these life insurance companies like John Hancock, for example.
Right.
And in New York, I'm often giving talks to people who have life insurance in excess of $50 million. So imagine if two of these guys die, the company loses $100 million. And most of them die from cancer because heart disease, all these other things, you have some sort of warning signs about them. But stage 4 cancer can be diagnosed. It's such a silent killer. So the life insurance companies, the wellness industry, the biggest threat to them is cancer. So they really are supporting my work for early detection. And I think that once again, whether we want a long lifespan or not, we definitely want a long health span.
Absolutely.
And the two should go together hand in hand. If we can reduce the most morbidities we experience, we do pretty well for 60 years or so of our lives. 50 to 60 years, we have an amazing repair toolkit in the body which keeps repairing the trauma, getting rid of the bad things. But after 50, 60 years, things start falling apart. They become decrepit at every level. And those more morbid years are the last 10 to 20 years of life that we suffer from, that the whole healthcare system suffers from. And by doing early detection and prevention, those morbidities can be at least abbreviated to maybe the last few weeks or few months, so that whatever lifespan is left to us, we should live it well. So in a way, both your questions are combined, that the longevity, the long lifespan, the long health span is equally related to finding the earliest inception of disease and neutralizing it. And that's what the stent is doing.
Very nice. We'll go to Hamda or Hamida Merchant Sahiba next.
Hi, Dr. Raza. I can proudly say that I'm probably one of the few people on this group who actually read a signed book of yours, because your niece Batul, who's in Boston, is a friend of mine, and Madiha had a copy that you had given to her at some point with your autograph on it, as we called it in the olden days. So I couldn't go through the whole book, but I read some of it. My question relates to a little bit, thinking about what you just said about the insurance companies being, your allies. My question was more about the intersectionality of extreme capitalism and the research that you do. That there is a fear somewhere that the Sentinel that you might inject, or early detection, how would that correlate with the access and equity of healthcare? Is there a possibility? I mean, this is just a general question, not just specifically to your research, but as we become better and better at preempting or predicting diseases in humans, unless there's a major overhaul of the healthcare delivery system in terms of equity and access, is there a real danger of denying insurance or denying healthcare to people because the insides of their body is predicting a course that the body is going to take at some point, and nobody wants to give them insurance, or nobody wants to, take on that mammoth task of, doing this work. So, what are the roadblocks or conversations that you might have had in terms of access and equity to complement breaking research like you are doing? And I'm sure it's happening in other fields as well.
Yeah. No, first, thank you so much. I'm delighted that you know my niece Batul. I will tell her that you were here. Love Batul. Secondly, I think you're asking a very pertinent question, but my answer is this. In 1909, Hamida, Henry Ford said that if I had asked my customers what they want, they would have said a faster horse. I gave them an automobile. So once something like an automobile came along, who's worried about making the horseshoe more efficient? Not at all. Once the microprocessors and word processors and cell phones came along, who cares for the typewriter? Who cares for a landline anymore? So the idea is that paradigms shift because of success of a new paradigm. Then the whole healthcare system, the whole ecosystem, and this is why I've been talking about the ecosystem of healthcare has to shift. Because you can't say that I'm finding the first cell, I should give this person a bone marrow transplant now. Of course not. You can't apply things that we're using for end stage disease to first stage. You need to have a different healthcare system taking care of what you said, internally diagnosing yourself, as opposed to 1,000 blood tests and scanning and imaging things being done. So, yeah, I intend to overturn the whole system by showing the success of the new one, and why people won't be anxious about getting the stent placed in them is because my first subjects for this, and I have thought about it carefully for years, is going to be cancer survivors. For example, let's say I had stage 3B colon cancer. I got surgery, chemo, radiation, immune therapy, again, everything they gave me for 1.5 years, and then they declared that I'm cancer free. But they said, hey, Azra, you had stage 3B, so your chance of recurrence is high. Now I put in the Sentinel as a cancer survivor. And the first cell of recurrence or relapse, I keep zapping. So you see, the person who's going to get the Sentinel desperately needs it, not someone healthy who's a 16-year-old walking around and I'm insisting on putting a Sentinel in them. No, it depends on who is going to be the beneficiary. And by the time we are ready to put this into the healthy population from birth to death, the implantable will have become a wearable.
Yes.
We are already working on the technology where you can put a little patch on top of the skin over a vein, and it can detect everything going on inside your body, just like the glucose monitor is doing. So basically, the point is that this is the first step of that technology, but it's already evolving into much better things. And finally, I'll end by saying to you that I'm calling this moment in medical field, and especially in oncology, what I'm talking about, as the NVIDIA moment. Why? Because NVIDIA is the company that laid down the groundwork for artificial intelligence, the framework for it, the infrastructure for it. With this kind of technology, we are laying down the biologic groundwork for precision oncology. That is treating the individual, gauging the individual's risk, and then offering them the exact antidote for that. So I think it is the NVIDIA moment in healthcare, and those who continue to run after the last cell are going to be the losers, because the writing is on the wall in front of us, anybody. But I'm proud to say I'm 5 years of everyone else at least.
I think you're further than that. And to those people who were asking the question if they can still get involved in some of these initiatives that are out there from as an investor, please contact me and I'll route you to Dr. Azra. Let's go to Bina. I think you had a hand up, or I may have missed something. Keep me honest. On to you.
Yeah, just thank you, Haris. This has been such a fascinating and important conversation, and we hope to get it out far and wide even afterwards through the recording. But Azrapa, what I wanted to ask you was, one thing you haven't talked about is alternative therapies. I know that's not your focus, but in the meantime, like for example, my father, who, as you know, was a medical doctor himself, and he had pancreatic cancer, and when he went, he didn't want to undergo chemotherapy and all that because he was more interested in quality of life. So you would have loved him and he would have loved you. And so he didn't, and he took Sachi Booty, which is this herbal treatment that an uncle of mine had suggested for my father, saying very hesitantly that, oh, he's a man of science, he's probably not going to take it. My father was like, what the hell? So in the morning he'd say, Lao bhai mera zahar do, because it was very bitter. So we would soak it at night, and he would have a cup of, it was like brown colored liquid in Sachi Booty, that herbal thing. And when he went back to Dr. Adib Rizvi, like 4 or 5 months later, the tumor had shrunk. And they said, and Dr. Rizvi was like, if we had been giving you our medicines, we would have said that it is because of that your tumor has shrunk, but there's no explanation for this. So he lived, they had given him 6 months, and he lived for 1.5 years beyond the time they had given him. And he had good quality of life. He smoked, I'm sorry to say, till the last day, actually. And he was, and he, didn't want to go to the hospital on the very last day, and he died peacefully at home that night. The alternative was going to the hospital and getting onto a machine, and the risk was that the lungs would collapse and he'd be put onto a ventilator, and he was like, no point. So what do you say about that kind of response in the meantime, since we don't have that first cell yet?
What do you say about it? Should everyone do that?
I think it's up to individuals. Obviously, you can't dictate it.
Exactly my answer.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing this story.
Okay.
There is no right or wrong way, because as Dr. Deep Rizvi said, yeah.
Thank you.
Azrapa, there's a question from my wife, Yasmin. She's asking, as an empath and someone who's obviously has a very high degree of compassion, do you feel that those personality traits in a physician can impact treatment of physiological diseases like cancer?
Yasmin, that is a question that I always find difficult to answer, because, in my life, as an oncologist, professional life, I have not met one single oncologist who didn't care for their patients. We really care. Everybody wants to do the best for the patient. Now, some have a style that's different than the others. Some connect with patients better than others. And I think those are individual differences that I don't really feel competent enough to comment on. But I can say one thing, that just being present for your patient matters a lot. What I see in younger oncologists is that they're very gung-ho and they're very excited to give the treatment. But when treatment after treatment fails, they withdraw, because they want to end up defending themselves from the pain of, they feel like it's a personal failure. And the way they say it is, patient failed to respond. No, patient didn't fail to respond. The treatment failed to cure the patient. But as humans, we can't face that. So our instinct is to protect ourselves. And so they withdraw. And that is the worst thing you do for your patient, to withdraw from them, not to go see them as they're going through the last steps of it. Then you just turn them over to hospice care or palliative care, and you don't even bother to go see them. So I'm saying that just being present, whether you are communicating or not, just your presence can matter a lot. So nobody can hide behind the idea of empathy, that, oh, I'm not that kind of a VP Terry person that you are, Ezra, or I am. No, your presence will matter. Just go stand by the bedside, hold the patient's hand. That requires nothing except your presence. But as I said, and I'd like to repeat it, I have not met any oncologists who didn't want to be there, but their styles are different. I am touchy-feely, so everybody gives me hugs. My clinic is a love fest from the moment I walk in, from the secretary who's making appointments, to the nurses, to the people assisting me in doing bone marrows, high-fiving. Everybody is just, it's like a big family. And patients are very much a part of that family. That's my style. As opposed to my colleague who comes in, who's very stiff upper lip, but one of the best doctors. I say that if I get sick, take me to this one, no matter what I'm suffering from. So I think it's really just a matter of style.
Azrapa, a question from Maheen asking about, in this current technology environment, the validity of regular screening methods like mammograms. Does that still make sense?
Of course, absolutely makes sense.
Okay. I think there was another.
I'd like to say one thing to Beena before I before we finish,
Sure.
and I hope this is the last. Beena, you said that I would have loved your father because he refused treatment, but that is not my point. My point is that if I had to take treatment today for cancer, I would take it. I would try the first line treatment, because there is nothing, and life is very precious. It's never going to come back to me. So if I can live for a bit longer, if I think that this treatment is going to help me live even a few days longer, I would try that. And most first line therapies could do that. or at least palliate the pain, because dying from cancer is a very horrible thing. I'd rather die from the treatment than the pain. But what your father did instead is show great courage and grace in accepting that this is the end, and he made his choice wisely. It's called amor fati, the love of fate, the acceptance that, okay, this is the hand I have been dealt. Now, how do I play this hand with utmost humility and utmost acceptance? That's what your dad did. And that's what I truly admire, appreciate, and I hope that all of us learn from the story that you just shared. Thank you so much. You are a sensitive person. I know that. And it shows through. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Azra. I just want to clarify, I didn't mean that you would love him because he refused treatment, but because you are kindred spirits that way, because
We are definitely.
Azrapa, you've been very patient. How much the questions that keep coming? You good for a little bit, or should we start to close this in the next 7 minutes or so?
It's up to you.
Acha, are you comfortable? We'll continue for a little bit.
I have
Yes, go
one
ahead, Amreen.
question.
Yes.
So I have a question. I really admire this goal of identifying cancer before we have cancer, like the very, very first cell. Like you said, this could be the last generation where we even see stage one. But there's a lot of false positives as well. And do you think we could run a risk of false positives, with the first cell, for example? I mean, when we go so far in advance, what do you think about eliminating these false positives too? And do you think we'd be increasing our risk of false positives? Because, you sometimes hear about people even having the mammograms, they're so on top of the screening that they have mastectomies they don't need to have.
Very nice, Breen, and a very pertinent question. I wrote a piece with Josh Hoffman, who is the president of Grail right now, the company devoted to liquid biopsies, early detection. And just full disclosure, I've been on the board for many years. So anyway, just about mammograms, a word. The US spends about $35 billion on screening tests. Out of this $35 billion, we get 9 million positive mammograms, meaning the mammogram is showing some density. But that doesn't mean it's cancer. Now you have to biopsy it, because the only diagnosis you can make is actually looking by eye, which is crazy in this day and age. But anyway, that's what we do. So out of 9 million positive mammograms a year, and I wrote this piece with Josh Hoffman in Scientific American. So if you put my name and Scientific American, you will get this article. Anyway, my point was that 9 million positive mammograms come. Everyone is biopsied. 8.8 million are false positives. So with $34 billion, we are diagnosing 200,000 cancers, actually. But are you questioning the mammograms today? Somebody asked me, should I get mammograms? I said, yes, of course, because this is what we have right now. What I'm saying is that false positivity doesn't mean the idea of screening or early detection is wrong. It means your technology is wrong. It means, why are you looking by eye? Why do you need a biopsy and a microscope? We should do better. Where is the vision? Where is the imagination? Nowhere. It's all in that same old. That's what I'm reacting to. With the advent of genomics, proteomics, transcriptomics, metabolomics, multi-omics, with the advent of AI, we need to do better to bring all this technology to bear and actually provide more accurate measures that are free of false positives.
Right.
So I absolutely agree with you, and I have written extensively about it in scientific journals where my peers review it and actually publish it. Why? Because of course these are our concerns, but think about it. This issue came into your head listening to me or reading my book. Somebody like me who has spent practically half a century thinking about it continuously, doing it, seeing patients, you don't think this is something that would be upmost in my mind? Yes, of course it is. I'm not scolding you for asking the question.
Yeah.
Sorry that I appears like that. I'm just saying that these are the exact things that I'm trying to overcome and say, no, that doesn't make the idea of early detection wrong. It makes your technology needs improvement.
Right. Right.
So
You know,
you need to think differently about things. You need to change your mindset. Oh, there's overdiagnosis with mammograms, so we shouldn't do them. No, you should do them. Well, you should improve. You need to change your mindset. How can
Right.
we do it?
Right. Right. Right.
folks, I had promised Azrapa that we won't go longer than 90 minutes. We're approaching that. I know there are hands raised. I recognize the comments that have been made in the chat. Javad Zafar Saab has some comments, and we'll take them. We'll note that. With your permission, we will cut off the questions at this point. And I'd like to close by asking Azra Appa to perhaps any comments that you want to make, but certainly perhaps a couplet and share of your choice that leaves us with a sense of optimism, a sense of courage in this quest that you have devoted your life to. And we want to thank you, Tahe Dil Se Aapka, from the community for all the work that you've done in the space of cancer research and treatment. Godspeed on that front, all the various things you're doing, and the way that you illuminate our soul with having us understand people like Ghalib. So shukriya for that. Go ahead back. Last word is Azra Appa's.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody once again for your patience and for the fact that you've stuck out 1.5 hours on a Saturday morning for me. I'm very, very honored and delighted. And as we were talking throughout, and some of the questions that were asked, especially by your brother about ye khalish kahan se hoti, that reminded me, I'd like to end with a Faiz Saab ghazal.
Cool.
Because it, as you'll hear it, you'll know what I mean. कई बार इसका दामन भर दिया हुस्ने दो आलम से. Husne do alam, Sarah Soleri and I used to talk about the fact that why, obviously the poet wants to give something very precious to whoever he's giving. Uska daman. Kiska daman bhar diya, that he'll reveal in the second sentence. But he wants to give the most precious thing. Most precious thing should be love. But he is saying beauty. Husne do alam, dunya aur asman ke husn. And Sarah's response to me was, but us, beauty is a loftier virtue than love. And I have to say, because her point was that it encompasses and includes love. कई बार इसका दामन भर दिया हुस्ने दो आलम से, मगर दिल है कि इसकी खाना वीरानी नहीं जाती. कई बार इसकी खातिर जर्रे जर्रे का जिगर चीरा. एटॉमिक लेवल पे आप पहुंच गए. कई बार इसकी खातिर जर्रे जर्रे का जिगर चीरा, मगर वो चश्मे हैरान जिसकी हैरानी नहीं जाती. नहीं जाती मताए लालो गौहर की फरावानी, मताए गैरतो ईमा की अरजानी नहीं जाती. और बसीरत मिल गई जब से मेरी चश्मे तन आसा को, that lazy eyes I used to have, since I have developed insight for my eyesight, क्या हुआ? बसीरत मिल गई जब से मेरी चश्मे तनासा को, बहुत जानी हुई सूरत भी पहचानी नहीं जाती. और सरे खुसरो से नाजे कच कुलाही छिन भी सकता है, कुलाहे खुसरवी से बुए सुल्तानी नहीं जाती. And last share is what I have been trying to tell you, that the question, the pain, the idea becomes so much a part of you that you lose yourself in it. बजुज दीवानगी व और चारा भी कहो क्या है, जहां अक्लो खिरत की एक भी मानी नहीं जाती। कई बार इसका दामन भर दिया हुस्ने दो आलम से, मगर दिल है कि इसकी खाना वीरानी नहीं जाती। आदाब एंड शुक्रिया एंड खुदा हाफिज।
बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया. And it's just amazing that, 38 people are still on this. Typically we start to sort of peel off 90 minutes into this. Very, very thankful to you for making time for us, to all of you for joining, for your patience, for your comments and your thoughts. And stay tuned, and we will continue to do these types of dialogues in the future. And adab and shukriya.